Hi there, Lynn Cox, clinical hypnotherapist. I work with women who have gotten out of domestic abusive relationships, domestic violence, as well as experienced childhood abuse, overcome some of the symptoms that result from those experiences. So, I want to get on and talk a bit more about evidence based therapies. They could be considered more holistic therapies, as well as supportive therapies for people undergoing more traditional psychology and psychological or psychiatric treatments in terms of helping heal from the residual impacts of traumatic experiences as well as abuse. And so, yoga, martial arts, breath work, and hypnotherapy is what I'm talking about. And I offer all of those modalities to my clients. I am a certified yoga instructor. I teach martial arts, Kung Fu specifically. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist as well as a rapid transformational therapist and instructor. So I'm going to start off first. I'm going to read a little bit from a couple of testimonials and feedback that I've received from clients who experienced childhood abuse and one abuse as well later in life in relationships. And I'm going to share this information, and then I'm going to get to some of the information that shows, demonstrates the scientific research and studies regarding hypnotherapy as a very effective treatment for people overcoming symptoms of PTSD and trauma and abuse. So I'll start with this one. um, so, Lynn, I'm reading directly from this former client. Thank you so much for all you do and the clarity you have brought into my life with hypnotherapy. It has been life-changing. Before I worked with you, I was struggling with anxiety and finding different terrible ways of coping and would have never said I had anxiety. I constantly lived with feeling frayed at the edges, and the work that we did together helped smooth those frayed edges. The work we did was life-changing and helped me so much, and she decided to train as a hypnotherapist herself. And she wants to help people feel the change she felt, the self-love that I built, and the peaceful glow that surrounds my life now. And then she also goes on to say the change that she's seen has been invaluable. And that said, she was estimating how much she'd saved in other therapies as well as other coping mechanisms she had. And she says here, I'll save over the years from not going to traditional therapists. She's been going to them for years. Back in that day, it was $200 per hour. So she says about $2,400 a year saved, and then goes on to say that is on the super low side, I'd say. There's also the amount I would have spent on coping, brackets, drinks, shopping, etc. And that would have been in the tens of thousands per year. So again, some very common symptoms that people experience, and that is exemplified right there by a former client who has now trained as a hypnotherapist. And this other one from a client, more recently, she says, I came to Lynn with the issue I call freezing, as in the fight, flight, freeze response. I wanted to move past my instinctive response to quit once something got too hard or stressful, or even beforehand if something was deemed unlikely to succeed. I wanted a fighting spirit instead. And this issue has caused me nameless amounts of grief throughout my life, dating back to my childhood, and has not only tripped me up regularly and harshly, but has prevented me from attempting new experiences. I'm glad to share that since my session over a month ago now, I have noticed several instances in my life where my old spirit would have interfered, but I pressed through triumphantly simply because I believed I could. Even a task such as company with others is far more pleasant without the spirit of defeat ruling the direction of conversation. So she basically has put this to the test and says, but already her quality of life has significantly improved, and with every win I gain more and more confidence. Thank you, Lynn. So, those are just two examples. I have seen many a client with past abuse experiences, and also with a lot of the similar symptoms that people experience. Not everybody's the same, not everybody responds the same. Some people can come out of a domestic violence relationship and not be classified as having PTSD. So it really ranges. But, people like to see, a lot of people are more comfortable seeing scientific studies. So I'm just going to point to a couple here. And you know what? If anyone's ever interested in finding out more, I keep these on record. Like, I do like to see these studies and this research coming out because some people do have that inquisitive mind. I've had a number of skeptical medical doctors who I've had conversations with, and I actually will add from another client perspective, another client of mine who's a PhD research professor. Also, I saw her for 2 sessions, and she's also training in the method that I deliver, rapid transformational therapy. So I think that's a great testament to the efficacy, as well as somebody coming from it with a very scientific mind, very interested in research. So I want to talk about this one here. So Dr. Spiegel, he's noted as kind of the father of hypnotherapy. He's at Stanford, I believe, and he's also a psychologist, if not a psychiatrist. But I'm just looking at this abstract of one study he penned talking about hypnosis in the treatment of victims of sexual abuse. And there's a few interesting sentences here that are pretty important to cite. So they go on to say that the relevance of hypnosis in the treatment of former sexual assault is important for kind of 2 reasons. And one is that the hypnotic phenomena are mobilized spontaneously as defenses during assault, and that can become a part of the syndrome of post-traumatic stress disorder. And this role of the role of dissociative defenses during and after traumatic experiences is reviewed. So, that's kind of the how and the why hypnosis can be very effective for people who have had past trauma and also specifically past sexual trauma. So, they go on to talk about how, special problems relevant to sexual assault in childhood are discussed, including extreme self blame and a profound sense of personality fragmentation. So, then when using hypnosis in treatment of people who have had these experiences, when the emphasis is on helping, they say patients, I refer to people I work with as clients. They use the verbiage patients, helps them restructure their memories of the experience, both by reviewing them with greater control over their physical sense of comfort and safety, and by balancing those painful memories with recognition of their efforts to protect themselves or someone else who is endangered. So, this study, the gist is, yes, hypnotherapy, when conducted in the right circumstances, can be very helpful for people who are overcoming PTSD or past sexual assault. I also want to just point again to when he talks about this greater control over their physical sense of comfort and safety. A large amount of disassociation can happen in people, and also particularly for children who are abused or assaulted in this way, they'll more often have the freeze response versus the fight flight response, because typically it's happening within the home or with a person who's either a family member or well known to the family. So a child's response is more likely freeze versus fight or flight. And disassociation and the habit of that disassociation throughout life can really kind of take hold. So that's even why a combination of hypnotherapy as well as what are called somatic healing techniques. The way I term it is somatic is really how we're relating to our body and how we're feeling in our body. And that's also when things like yoga and martial arts and breath work come into play. Those are very grounding methods to use. They very much get people in their body, feeling their body. A lot of people don't have a lot of even sensation of their body, and that can be extraordinarily healing and helpful in recovering. So, as a side note, kind of off of the discussion about hypnotherapy as a treatment. And then I'm going to go on even more here. So, hypnotherapy for trauma work. So, again, I have all of these links and references if anybody is interested. But, again, meta analysis of 6 studies on hypnotherapy found that it significantly reduced participants' PTSD symptoms of intrusion and avoidance. Another study talking about the fact that hypnotherapy can help reduce insomnia in those with combat related PTSD. And also another study finding that hypnotherapy is an excellent additive treatment, decreased intrusive and avoidant symptoms of PTSD and helped improve sleep. So, all symptoms that people who have hyper aroused nervous systems, hypnotherapy is very effective. Goes on to say, researchers have also found that hypnotherapy may be able to help reduce depression symptoms. And also, that in combination with cognitive behavioral therapy can be highly effective in reducing depression, anxiety, and feelings of hopelessness. And then hypnotherapy for trauma, specifically, this article goes on to state that because when you're in hypnosis, when clients are in hypnosis, you're very relaxed and you're also impressionable. You're kind of open to suggestion, but only to suggestions that you'd want to take on. That's why hypnotherapy is really effective for people for habits and for performance. But if you think about it, if you're on a healing path and journey, taking good care of yourself, or as best of care of yourself as you can through things like good sleep, good nutrition, a good amount of exercise and movement, it can also help to play into that. Like, how are you setting up, how you're approaching all of the things in your life? But this one talks about PTSD and the symptoms that kind of fall into 4 categories. They're the re-experiencing, the avoidance, the negative shifts in thoughts and mood, and then the physical symptoms. And so, going on to cite that hypnotherapy may be an effective treatment option for those experiencing PTSD symptoms, and also that it is a great adjunct therapy for people who are also in other types of psychotherapy or group therapy or medication. And so, the techniques specific to hypnotherapy that are effective in treating people in these matters is that you're really, really relaxed so you can reduce the mental and physical stress. Triggers, and I've talked about triggers a lot before, and I'll talk about triggers a lot more now, or a lot in the future too. So they talk about the fact that during hypnosis, you might be able to identify the triggers that have gone unnoticed. And so that can be really helpful because you can then gain that awareness and then have more awareness in your day-to-day life. You can also reframe the memories that you have. Because you know what, and I'm not making light of any kind of abuse, trauma, violence, anything like that. I've experienced those things myself, which is why I trained in these methodologies. But it's usually not the experience in and of itself that tends to cause problems in our lives in the future. It is our meaning that we've made of those events, what we then identify ourselves as, how we attribute those events to ourselves, and then how we perceive ourselves. So this reframing is extremely effective when you're trying to get over those feelings of obsessive thoughts, of feelings of chronic victimization, of feelings of shame and guilt. If you were a child and you did freeze, some people in future can feel guilt for that. Why didn't I fight back or run away? And the truth was because as a child you really cannot do that. So this reframing that can take place while you're in hypnotherapy, and specifically rapid transformational therapy, we do a lot of work around the reframing and then also anchoring resource states. So once in hypnotherapy, when you know the triggers, you can start to replace them with anchors. So basically a different type of response that you'd rather have. So, i.e., feeling confident, safe, in control, working that through with how you'd feel with your body and respond. You can start to retrain, reframe, and then also retrain how you respond in situations. So, that is just the smallest little tip of the iceberg. And I like to share that because, people want to know more. A lot of people who have experienced domestic violence, abuse, childhood trauma, CSA, it can sometimes take them a while to find some kind of therapy or methodology that works for them. And so I just like to present these ideas as options and let people know that this has been well researched, not as well researched as other things potentially. I think we're going to see more and more of this evolving, and especially as different modalities and types of therapists start to kind of work together. I've had a couple of clients approach me lately saying, my psychologist said that I might benefit from trying hypnotherapy, which is fantastic. So, it can be a combination of you're under the care of a psychiatrist and you're medicated. I never say get off medication ever, ever. But hypnotherapy can work in conjunction with different therapies. Cognitive behavioral therapy, psychotherapy, yoga, martial arts, exercise, if you're working with a nutritionist, with a personal trainer. There are very many different methods that can be used that can be highly effective. And my last thing to say on this note is, if you haven't found something that's worked for you yet, keep on trying, because it totally is possible to recover and heal from any degree of past abuse, trauma, violence, and just keep on trying things and maybe combine things together too, and that could be the key. So I hope everyone's having a great day, and I will be on again soon. Bye for now.